Well, I think everybody runs for office because they think they can make a difference. And in my instance, I think I've made a very positive difference. And I've done it at different levels. As a county commissioner, I made a big impact in Utah County. And Utah County got to be known by the Utah Taxpayers Association as the best managed county in Utah. And then I had an opportunity to serve as lieutenant governor and working with Governor Huntsman, and Utah got known as the best managed state in America. So my impact has been, I think, very positive, and I certainly am prepared and have the opportunity to move forward. When you think of my background, I come from the private sector. I've run a couple of businesses successfully, and then I've been elected by my peers in that business industry. For example, I was the past president of the Utah Association of Realtors. As a realtor, broker, developer, it's nice to have your peers honor you in that way. And then I served for a number of years on the National Association of Realtors Board of Directors. Then I went into public service, elected as a county commissioner, had great success there, and got elected by my peers as the president of that association, the Utah Association of Counties, and the president of the County Commissioners Association. So my peers, again, I think, appreciated my leadership and what we were able to accomplish. Then serving as lieutenant governor, I don't think there's a better training ground you could have in preparation to become governor than being the lieutenant governor. And so for 4.5 years, I worked with Governor Huntsman and continued to travel the state and understand the issues that are different and unique in all of our 29 counties. I think all of that has prepared me in a very unique way, maybe the best preparation of any governor ever, in the private sector, local government, lieutenant governor, and now governor, to really hit the road running and to accomplish a lot of great things. And clearly we see the state turning around. I inherited the state at a very difficult time, at the bottom of the recession, and the worst economic time that we've had since the Great Depression. And immediately, as we put into place my economic development plan, we've turned the state around economically, so that today, when I took over, we had an unemployment rate of 8%. Now it's down to 6.0, still over 2.5% below the national average. Our economic growth rate is 3 times the national average. Our job growth creation is second best in the nation. So I've seen some real positive things that have taken place on my watch, and we're in the middle of a lot of different initiatives, whether it be on education, economic, job growth creation, energy, public lands. And I want to continue with those programs. We're not out of the woods yet. There's still more to be done. And as I quote Abraham Lincoln, who said, "It's unwise to swap horses in the middle of the stream. It would be unwise to change me out and have somebody else have to start over at square number one, where we've got the momentum going." And so that's the reasons I'm running. I'm prepared and I'm capable, and we've got the state going in the right direction right now, and I think it warrants me staying on. Well, I think probably a couple of things. My background, is, I think, pretty extensive. We're looking for the chief executive for the state. My private sector has been executive experience. My public sector as county commissioner has been executive experience. My involvement as lieutenant governor has been executive experience. This is the executive branch. And so I've had in all aspects of my life executive branch experience. So I'm prepared. I understand what it takes to manage. And sometimes people think management and leadership is just being loud and obnoxious when leadership is getting things done. And I've been able to prove at every level, private and public sector, the ability to get things done and working with differences of opinion and diverse groups and actually accomplishing great and good things. So I think my background and experience, I think, is what sets me apart. It's broader and deeper than I think anybody else running. And I think my demeanor is one that, again, brings people together. We have some real challenging times that we've gone through and are still facing. And it's a matter of how can we bring people together and elevate their participation, and based on a set of principles, bring people together. Sometimes labels divide us, but principles, I believe, will in fact unite us and help us to find appropriate and proper outcomes. And I understand that better than most, and I've been able to demonstrate that ability in my past. So I think I come with a set of criteria that will serve the people of Utah well. Well, there's a number of issues that I think are at the forefront right now, and others that probably come along from time to time. Let me just start on those that are kind of obvious. One, the number one issue for the people of Utah right now is grow the economy. They're concerned about jobs and economic opportunity, not only for themselves, but for their children. Economic development is really where we need to focus, and I've been focused laser-like, and that's why we see, I think, good outcomes. It's not by happenstance, it's not just by luck of the draw, it's by plan and by design that we're having great outcomes. We've stood firm here a couple of years ago, and we had some real difficult challenges, being fiscally prudent, making tough decisions, balancing the budget, pension reform, those kinds of issues, which, because we've stayed true to principles, are now getting us opportunity to have the economy grow and prosper. And again, we're not named #1 place in America for business by just luck. It's by plan and design that 2 times on my watch we've been given this high accolade by the gold standard, Forbes magazine. So we're going to fight for that, and we're going to continue to fight for economic growth and development. The second area we need to work on is education. Again, as I'm laser-like in my focus on economic development and job growth creation, it's obvious to, I think, all of us that if we're going to continue to have long-term sustained economic growth, we've got to have a good, skilled, educated labor force that reflects the demands of the marketplace. And so we've got to raise the bar more than we've ever done before on getting production out of our schools in preparation for college and universities. And that's why I've put in place our goal of 66% by 2020, meaning that 66% of our adult population will have some kind of post-high school degree or certificate. And if we don't do that, our economy will underperform by 2020. Now that's a stretch. It's going to be a challenge, but it's an all-hands-on-deck effort that we're going to fight for on education to make sure that our labor force reflects the demands of the marketplace. And if we do that, our economy will continue to grow. We have other areas that we need to fight for, too. It's our opportunity to develop our natural resources. We have a unique challenge in Utah with our public land issues, with 70% of our land mass being owned and controlled by the federal government. I've put together for the first time in our state's history a 10-year energy plan that gives us a framework, a pathway moving forward of how we can optimize our opportunities to develop our natural resources, and particularly energy. And we have a lot of it here in Utah, and we can not only provide jobs in rural Utah, but it gives us competitive advantage by keeping our costs of power down. One of the things cited in Forbes magazine was the fact that Utah has energy costs that are 31% below the national average. We in fact have the 4th or 5th lowest cost per kilowatt hour of all of America. Again, competitive advantage that we have for our manufacturing, for our business along the Wasatch Front, development of our resources in rural Utah. It's win-win-win. Win for the rurals, win for Utah as a whole, and win for the country. So fighting our energy and our public land issues are something that I've been involved with and will continue to fight as we go forward. There's other issues that come up from time to time, and you've got to be nimble and reflective of that. For example, there's concerns about Hill Air Force Base. Hill Air Force Base and our Air Logistics Center in Ogden, with the cutbacks that are surely going to be coming, as the federal government should balance their budget, or at least try to make an attempt, there'll be some cuts. I want to make sure that when we, and I applaud, by the way, the federal government to make changes in how they spend money. They're borrowing 40% more than they spend. That can't last. And we'll feel some of that pressure. We'll live within our means as we do so. But I want to make sure that when they do the next round of base reduction and closing, the BRAC Commission, and they analyze Hill Air Force Base, that they analyze it based on the facts, based on the data. 1, is it in the best interest of national defense? 2, is it in the best interest of the Air Force? 3, is it in the best interest of the taxpayers? And then, if we do that, I think Hill Air Force Base will stack up well. If it's done just on politics, then we've got a concern that we might have Hill Air Force Base closed at the worst and maybe modified at the best, and yet being done not because it's in the best interest of the taxpayer or a national defense interest or the Air Force, but just based on politics. That's one that's just emerging right now that probably most people aren't even thinking about. but one that we are is on our radar screen, and an example of you've got to be nimble. There could be a lot of different issues that could come up over the next year that we need to be prepared to fight for, and we are prepared to fight for in the interests of the people of Utah. Well, I'm sure there are, and you know, I'm not perfect, and I certainly have made mistakes, and probably some of the areas where I should have vetoed when I didn't, probably areas that I probably should have been a stronger advocate in different areas. Overall, I'm very pleased with what we've been able to accomplish. We have a great track record. We've done a lot of great things, but nobody's perfect, and I certainly don't presume to be. And there's always room for improvement. But by and large, we've done a pretty good job for the 2.5 years we've been the governor. Well, if it violates principles, you know, that I espouse, and if it violates, I think, the best interests of the people of Utah, I recognize that the governor's role is kind of a check and balance on the legislature, and so, you know, we will veto when we think it's appropriate. We try to work with the legislature. You know, the good news for us is that the Republicans, I'm a Republican, a conservative Republican, some say the most conservative governor since Brigham Young, but, you know, and we have a conservative Republican-controlled legislature, so we don't see a lot of things differently. We're mostly on the same page. But if I see some areas that I think they're going down maybe the wrong part of the road, I'll talk to the legislature and the legislator responds to the bill and say, you know, I'm uncomfortable with this, and I'd like to see you maybe work with us and maybe modify the bill. We've done that a lot, and I think that's helped us to avoid veto options because we've corrected the bill in course. But again, it's always got to be there as the threat and the last opportunity to stop bad legislation from going into place, and we have vetoed and we will veto again. Well, we're already doing it. You know, we're doing remarkably well compared to other states, and you know, our economy has turned around. You know, as I mentioned earlier, when I took over, the unemployment rate was 8%. It's now 6%, and stabilized and dropping. Our job growth creation is dramatic. I think in the next year we'll be completely out of the hole that was dug during the Great Recession. We've put in place the principles of fiscal responsibility, building on a solid foundation there of pay as you go, live within your means, don't have excessive debt, and save for a rainy day. The same principles that families and individuals budget their own household budgets with. Government should follow those same principles. And so we're going to continue to do that to give the solid foundation. We also have created a very business-friendly environment. Forbes says it's the best environment in America for business and for careers. American Legislative Exchange Council says we have the best economic outlook of any state in America for business. And so we're doing good things as we've kept taxes down. We've reduced our tax rates, income tax, and a flatter tax in Utah. I've just completed a complete review of all of our business regulations in the state of Utah. We're already at a good environment, but we've made it even better. And we put a process in place now that for every piece of statute that's passed that has a regulatory aspect to it, and that's what happens. You have statutes passed which spawns rules and regulations. When that happens, it triggers now a mechanism that goes to my Office of Economic Development so we can weigh in and say that rule makes no sense. It has no public purpose. It doesn't do anything to protect the public. In fact, all it is a drag on the entrepreneur and the business community. So we're going to have an opportunity now in the executive branch to weigh in on that rule and regulation from our business component part. We'll always invite public comment from the private sector, but I think that's going to help us make sure that we don't have weeds growing the garden here that will get entangled with the business entrepreneur. So taxation, business friendly because of our regulations. We're also working to bring in venture capital. Utah's been not a place that a lot of venture capital has flowed into. I just spent a few weeks ago some time in Silicon Valley. A lot of venture capital, a lot of business people there, demonstrating to them that if you want a place to invest money, Utah ought to be on your radar screen. A great place where we have predictability and certainty for the business entrepreneur. The biggest threat we have in America today is uncertainty. We have about $2 trillion of capital sitting on the sidelines, not participating because of uncertainty. So we've tried to create this environment here that's business friendly and has predictability and certainty to it going forward, and saying to the venture capitalists, come here and invest money. And we're getting their attention. We have a lot of people now looking at business community here. We have a large component of SBA loans. We've, by Money Magazine, recognized Utah as one of the epicenters for small business growth creation in America. So again, those efforts of bringing venture capital, empowering the private sector, having a business-friendly environment are what we have been doing and will continue to do, in fact, accelerate that opportunity. I have a goal, you probably have heard about, of 100,000 jobs in 1,000 days. It started out when we had about 102,000 people unemployed, and we said, you know what, we're going to make it happen. We're going to help to accelerate the private sector. Government doesn't create jobs. It's the private sector. So we need to provide an environment where they can incubate, where they can create and innovate and find opportunities in the private sector. We've done that. The good news for all of us, on my goal of 100,000 jobs in 1,000 days, we're down to only 80,000 people unemployed now. So it's working. We're creating a lot of jobs, and like I said earlier, we're growing at 3 times the national average and the second fastest job growth creation state in America. So we're going to continue to do that, and I think that'll bode well for the future of Utah. A lot of issues that we need to fight for, and I can tell you, it's not just the economy. I'll just maybe conclude with this. There's issues that we need to stand up against the federal government and their overreach. If you listen to my State of the State, you know I talk about that, and I'm passionate in my belief of the balance of power. Federalism, most people don't talk about it much. It's kind of an obscure terminology. But the balance between the centralized government of the federal government and the states, the laboratories of democracy. And we're partners. I understand that. But the overreach that we see is something we need to fight against. The most egregious of those overreaches is the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, commonly known as Obamacare. That's why I filed a lawsuit against that in one of 25 states that we, in fact, are involved with that. We're going to get an answer on that probably sometime this summer with the Supreme Court. I believe it clearly is unconstitutional, and the overreach is on the individual mandate is something that we need to stand up against. But it's not just there. It's on Medicaid reform. Again, we're working the overreach with the Medicaid issues of health care. It's the biggest budget buster I face. $160 million I've got to put into Medicaid this year of new money. You know, when you only have $400 million of new money, you can see that takes a lot out. It makes it very difficult for you to balance your budget and put money into areas you need, whether it be in education or energy development or some of the safety net issues. If you have to put it all into a federal program that we're working with them on with Medicaid, and they take away our ability to innovate and create and find ways to do more with less, it inhibits our ability to serve the taxpayers in an optimum level. Our public lands issues. Again, that's why I filed suit over the wildlands proposition. Clearly an unconstitutional reverse end around over the Congress in designation of our public lands as wildlands, bypassing Congress. And so we filed a lawsuit on that, and they pulled back. We filed lawsuits now on our RS-2477 roads and rights-of-way. Again, it's critical that we protect the co-ownership that we have as a state and counties on these rural roads, because it helps us define wilderness. Wilderness, is, by definition, has to be roadless. That's why this is an important fight. And in that public land issue, we have 3 arrows in the quiver. We have negotiation. We try to negotiate. We have legislation where we try to bring to Congress and legislate, as we've done with the Washington County Lands Bill, and litigation. And I'll use and have used all 3 of those areas to protect our public lands and the opportunities that we have as a state here in Utah. So all those are part and parcel of growing the economy, providing economic opportunity in all 29 counties of our state. And I won't rest until everybody who wants a job can find a job in Utah. So that's my commitment. That's what we're doing, have been doing, and will continue to do. And that's why I'm asking for the vote to be reelected as governor.